All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Town Council public hearing to review the tentative budget. Today is Tuesday, April 6, 2021, and we are calling this meeting to order at 6 p.m. The public hearing notice states that today's meeting is to provide an opportunity for interested electors and/or taxpayers to express their views regarding the Town Council's tentative budget for fiscal year 2021-2022 pursuant to subsection 805 of the Town of Newington Charter. Anyone may participate in our meeting after the public presentation by calling in on Zoom or participating through the Zoom app, and I will review that after the presentation is completed. All right, we'll just get right into it. So this evening, I am going to present our Town Council's tentative budget for fiscal year 2021-2022. As you know, we had a public hearing recently on March 23rd where the town manager went over his proposed budget, and now we as a council have adopted his budget and are beginning our work on the budget. So we want to go ahead and review it again in this public hearing. Our budget schedule moving forward is on the screen, and you'll see that tonight is our public hearing. On following this meeting, following this public hearing at 7 p.m., we also have a special meeting of the Town Council where budget adjustments are able to be made. That is an agenda item. Although I'm not sure how many will be made this evening. We do tend to like to hear from the public following the public hearing and then make some adjustments. So we'll see if there are any on the docket later on this evening. Following this evening on April 13th at 7 p.m., we are scheduled for a regular meeting where we will also entertain changes to the tentative budget that you'll be seeing this evening. On April 20th, the Town Council is scheduled at 7 p.m. for a special meeting. And the purpose of that meeting is to adopt our budget and set the mill rate moving forward. There will be an opportunity that evening if there are any last minute adjustments to be made to the budget as well. So we'll start right in this evening with our budget summary page. And I'll just go through this quickly to review some of the changes that you'll see from last year into this year. I will be looking down at my copy. I do have notes, so I apologize if I'm looking down. As you look across the page, and the highlighted yellow is our recommended budget for this year that we're beginning our work on. And you'll see that the town government operations show a reduction of $1,142,947, or a decrease of 2.98%. On the Board of Education operations side, you'll see a change from the previous budget of $0, or a 0% increase. Moving down the page, you'll see under Metropolitan District Commission payment, our payment this year has gone down just slightly, $65,250, or a reduction of 1.4%. And quite honestly, we were pretty pleased to see that. It has been a while since we've seen a reduction in the amount that we need to budget for MDC. And so we're really pleased to see that. Even though it's a slight reduction, it is moving in the right direction. Just below that, you'll see our debt service. On the town's share of our debt service, we have a reduction of $192,772, or a reduction of 11%. Debt service for the education share is down by $66,894.
Can I print this?
2%.
Okay.
Moving down, you'll see capital improvements and equipment reserve, the town share. There is a significant increase in these two items, the town share and the Board of Education share for capital improvement. And I will go into that in a bit more detail later on in the presentation. But just for the purpose of this summary, the increase on the town side is $4,956,384, an increase of 161.9%, and $692,000 increase on the Board of Education side, or an increase of 553.6%. Those percentages are, I know they look scary, but bear with until the end of the presentation, and you'll see how this plays out. As we move down the page, I'll draw your attention to the line where it says general fund balance applied. You'll see that we are applying $2.5 million from our general fund balance to offset the burden to the taxpayer this year. And since I've been on the council, I know that each and every year we do take money from our general fund balance to help in this regard to offset the burden to taxpayers. It does vary from year to year, dependent upon what our fund balance is and what we think is reasonable in order to achieve where we would like to be with our mill rate and be able to have enough in the quote unquote rainy day fund. So when you think of our general fund balance, that really is a balance that we need to keep at a certain level in order to maintain our bond ratings. And we need to have a certain amount so that if there is a catastrophic event that should affect us, there are unforeseen expenditures that need to happen for any reason that we haven't budgeted for, that's where we would look to find the money to do that. And we always check with our finance director, Janet Murphy, to make sure that she agrees with the amount that we put in this line item. And so the town manager did his due diligence in preparing the budget and checking with her to make sure that this made sense for us moving forward. And so we are looking to apply that $2.5 million out of the fund balance. Moving down the page, you'll see that our net grand list did go up significantly. It's up 4.5%, and we're so pleased about that. Although I know that really does mean our property values are increasing, so that's a good thing, folks. And so you'll look down at the bottom, our mill rate line there, you'll see that in 2019, 2020, prior to this administration taking over, our mill rate was 39.45. Last year's budget, we were able to bring down to 39.28. And right now our tentative budget stands down again at 39.10, a decrease of 0.18 or down by 0.5%. So we are trying to move in the right direction. I do want to say before we move on from this slide, as everybody looks at this page, I have to acknowledge the fact that our town manager and town staff went just incredibly above and beyond to make sure they delivered to us a fiscally responsible budget. They dug deep. They wanted to make sure that we had what we needed and we requested as a council for our budget moving forward. And I cannot say thank you enough for the work that they did putting this budget together for us and for our consideration. All right, we'll move on. The next slide. Oh, I have mine a little bit out of order in my presentation. All right. The operating budget, you'll look at this graph and you'll see the gray bars are the Board of Education budgets over the last 20 years, and the blue bars represent the town operations budget. And you'll see for the first time in the last 20 years, the council, we really have been blessed to have the general government budget team present a reduction in their operating budgets for the general government departments. And overall, the reduction for general government exceeds $1 million in reductions, with staffing needs being a focal point by the staff leadership. The approach of minimizing costs while enhancing service delivery is being achieved with this philosophy. Need takes priority over want. And that is a mantra that we've kind of adopted through this budget process. As we move forward, we want to keep saying this: need must take priority over want. If we want to keep our costs lower, if we want to keep our mill rates lower, we have to keep this in mind as we move forward, and we will. All right, this next slide, I'll draw your attention not only to the highlighted areas, but you'll see at the top of the slide, there are 3 red arrows pointing to the columns that I'll be reviewing this evening. So when we look at this graph, it shows Newington at the top, just for us to be able to refer to easily. Down below are 15 additional towns that we consider to be comparable to our town in many ways. And so the first red arrow that you'll see points to per capita income. That figure of $39,117 shows how much our average per capita income is in our town. And when you look at the other towns in comparison, you'll see that Newington ranks second to the bottom. So our taxpayers, our residents, our ability to pay, our income is second to the bottom in comparison to these other towns. And we need to keep that in mind when we look at the ability of our town to pay for what we're providing them. When we move over to the next column, our per capita debt, that red arrow that points down to per capita debt, you'll see for Newington that figure of $942 in comparison to these other towns. Now, what that means is our per capita debt is essentially, if every resident in town wrote a check out today for that amount, $942, our debt would be wiped out. Our debt service, we would have none left. And so when you look at that and compare to other towns, you'll see that we are significantly lower than all of those other towns. Well, that says we've done a great job over the years of keeping our debt service down. We haven't chosen to do a lot of large projects. We've kept that figure down, and we've tried to do that in knowing what our residents are able to pay. And so income, debt, that kind of looks like it's in line. Where the problem is when you look over at that last column, and this is why our mill rate is such a focus for this administration. That mill rate at 39.46, when you look, or sorry, 45, when you look down that column, that mill rate is the 5th highest in comparison to those other towns. So let's think about that. Our per capita income, what our residents can afford to pay when we look at their income, we're second to the bottom, but our mill rate is 5th highest. That does not equate. That is not what we need to be doing for our residents, and we can't continue that trend moving forward. We have to look at ways to reduce that or keep it the same so that we're not continually increasing. And that is our focus. All right, moving on. So when we look at our mill rate, and I keep saying this over and over, we need to keep it, we need to keep it, we need to keep it down, right? That is what we're focusing on. There are only 3 ways to really bring that mill rate down. And when we talk about those 3 ways, we're looking at either increasing our revenue, right? So either revenue can be a lot of things. One of our revenues is taxes. One of our revenues is economic development. We need to look at how to increase our economic development if we want to help reduce that mill rate. The other way is to decrease our expenditures. And as we move on tonight, you will see that our town staff has done an amazing job of looking at reducing our expenses. We already talked about that $1 million in staffing reductions. We'll talk more about that as we move forward, but there are so many areas that we've done that in. So when you look at this slide, economic development has been set as a goal for our town by our town council and our town staff and our town manager. So you'll see on the screen the goal of 150 million. Well, that might sound like pie in the sky, but that's what we're striving for. We are aiming to increase our economic development in this town by $150 million. And I'll just read you the summary on this page. A major focus of our administration has been to spur grand list growth in an effort to offset the continuing increases of the mill rate, which at this point places Newington at the high end compared to other similar towns, as I reviewed earlier. The town manager has assembled a group of existing employees to serve as an economic development team. So we're using people in-house that our town manager has said, hey, these folks are experts. We can trust them. They're going to do what needs to be done to help us in this area. And they already have. The proof is in the pudding, as they say. And what we already know is that since creating that team approximately 1 year ago today, an $11 million hotel has already been approved for 712 Cedar Street, as well as the potential sale of town land at the former National Welding site, as most people refer to it, at 690 Cedar Street. Excuse me. Several other developments are currently in the process of preparing for town plan and zoning approval, and we're hoping that the year 2021 and beyond are an exceptional time where we can hope for some mill rate reduction and increased employment opportunities based on this economic development. Now, what I'll say is, oftentimes when people hear economic development, there's a little bit of a scare. People worry that we're just going to do nothing but develop and build big buildings and not worry about open space. That is not the case here. What we're looking at is economic development in areas that are already developed and maybe need redevelopment or are already zoned for development. So we're not looking at any areas of open space that are zoned for open space. We're not going to be touching that. We're not looking at that. That is off the table. We are looking to preserve our open space in addition to boosting our economic development at the same time. All right, so this graph really does illustrate nicely the 2 lines, the orange and the blue. So if you look at the orange, that is our grand list. So you'll see we've had, ups and downs over the years, but what you're seeing from 2019 moving forward is a pretty steady increase. We're moving that grand list up, hoping to increase our revenue. When you look at our mill rate, that blue line, obviously, as I've been saying all evening, we're looking for that blue line trend to go down. That's what we're aiming for. And so when you look at starting in 2019 at a bit of a high, we've been moving down steadily in 2021 and now 22. We are moving that mill rate down, increasing our grand list, and those 2 things in conjunction are really the formula for success for us. All right, this is one of my favorite slides because we do it every year, so it should be familiar to everyone. This is our piece of the pie slide. So we'd like to look at where our expenditures are because that's really how we control our budget. As we mentioned, it's revenues versus expenditures. So when we look at the whole pie of our budget and what we're spending on, you'll see, oh, I'm sorry, that category name, I don't know where that went to because on my printed slide, it's the Board of Ed. So that yellow, that large big pie that says category name should be listed, and it does say it below, as Board of Education. So the largest portion of our budget is the Board of Education, and the figure for that is $76,768,011. So that is the biggest slice of the pie, so to speak, when we look at our expenditures or how we're spending our money in town. The next biggest slice of the pie is our town government. Our town government slice comes in at $37,246,581. And then you look at the next slide, the next piece of the pie is our CIP. So let me go into this a little bit more detailed here. As I mentioned earlier, I would. When we're looking at our CIP budget, this year we have a significant increase in that account. It's more than doubled from last year. And there are several reasons why. We are looking to address our facilities needs. And so what we've seen over the years is that we were previously, now that we look back, obviously hindsight is 2020. So over the years, we have needed to decrease our expenditures, and we've always or oftentimes looked to our CIP account. That's where we've often cut or said we can hold off for a few more years on doing that project or that road or that repair. And what we know now, looking back, is that we really didn't do a great job of that. So we were previously underfunding this category and not following professional standards to make sure that we're keeping up with what we need to keep up with. Increases in this category are due to the facilities condition assessment that we as a council went out for. We asked a group to come in, take a look at every single facility in town, Board of Ed, town government, all the little buildings around town that some of us didn't even realize were necessarily town owned or town operated or town responsibility. And we made sure that all of those were taken into account, and that assessment came back and it gave us some areas to look at. So it helped us understand where our needs are, as we talked earlier, not our wants, but where our needs are regarding our facilities. And so we are committed to making sure that in our capital improvement project plan, we are addressing the needs that were brought forward to us. And that may take a few years in order to address those, but that assessment came back, it gave us a list of what we need to look at, and it's helping us list our priorities out to make sure we're addressing what needs to be addressed. We're also looking at the replacement of our public safety communication system. So if you have watched over the last few years, I'm sure you've heard at many meetings us talking about the need for improvements to our radio system and our communication system. Now, this will address radios that are used by our police department, our fire department, and our EMS. So it really will help make sure that not only are we as public safe, because we're making sure that our communication systems are working all of the time, that we're not having repairs and replacement, repairs and downtime. You know, we need to make sure we address that with this. So we're making sure that we're safe, and we're also making sure that those providers and public safety personnel are safe as well. And so this has been deemed as a priority for this council, and we've made sure that that is in that CIP budget as well. We are also looking at realigning the use of our equipment reserve fund and making sure that we're addressing public streets and sidewalks. So as I mentioned earlier, over the years, when we've had to decrease our spending, we sometimes have said, well, maybe that truck or that car can go a few extra years. We've kept some vehicles on the road for longer than we should. And we're really saying that we need to make it a priority that we are keeping up with those replacements, that we are replacing vehicles, taking them out of our fleet, not keeping them in our fleet, and moving forward, making some adjustments to make sure that happens and that we stay in good shape. All of these things are really just, if you think of it this way, it's an insurance policy for us. So moving forward, if we keep addressing these things each and every year, just like in your own home, if you keep up with your maintenance every year, if you keep up with your vehicles every year, then you're not going to have a huge expenditure or unexpected expense. Wow, we have this huge problem in this building, or we have this car that we can no longer use, or vehicle. Well, we're trying to avoid those issues. So we are making sure that we invest in our capital improvements to make sure we're addressing that equipment reserve fund, and we're addressing our streets and sidewalks as well. Can we move to, there we go. All right, so this is moving us back to that general fund summary again. And there is a slide that I don't see here that I had printed out earlier that I wanted to quickly review. So when you're looking at, and James, I'm not sure if you have it in there, but it was the town government operations page slide. It just simply shows the town side, but I can speak to it if not.
I do have it. For some reason, it was hidden. Let me see if I can pull it out.
Okay. Thanks for bearing with me, guys. I just think it's really worthwhile to look at this one slide. There we go. Perfect. Thank you. So before we go back to that overall summary, I wanted to really highlight the town government operations side, which obviously is our area of specialty. So when you look down at that highlighted area at the bottom of the page, you can see that the overall general government budget came in at an increase of $293,490. And that is a 5.52% increase. So you might say, well, then how did we end up with not increasing our mill rate? Well, the way we did that was all of our departments had to dig deep. They really had to look at our wants versus our needs. Mr. Chapman, our town manager, did an amazing job of working with staff leadership to look at all areas to determine where those wants and needs are and how we could prioritize those needs and make sure that's what we're addressing. And so he went through each department with his leadership, and this is what they came up with. Our public safety department is taking a reduction of 1.21%. Our public works department is taking a reduction of 4.16%. Community planning and development has a reduction of 3.23%. Public health has a reduction of 0. So we're keeping them flat funded, hoping that we give them enough to do what they need to do. Community services has a reduction of 4.14%. Public library, a reduction of 5.94%. Parks and recreation, a reduction of 0.79%. And insurance and miscellaneous, a reduction of 7.23%. And that's where that general government operations reduction of 2.98% comes in. So again, that general government increase was offset by our departments and town leadership doing what they needed to do to help us gain that reduction. And a lot of that, as I mentioned earlier, was done through staffing. When we didn't lay people off. I don't want to cause a panic. What happens, if someone leaves either because of a retirement or because of another opportunity, what Mr. Chapman and his staff did was they looked at it and they said, well, we have this opening now. What can we do? Do we feel like we need to replace that position, or can we take what that position was doing and manage it without replacing that? And so they were able to reduce some of our town staff in order to deliver to us a decrease in that budget of $1.142 million. And so kudos to our town staff for really digging deep to do that and bringing us that reduction. All right, so now back to that general summary page. Just to review, the town government operations, as I just went over, is at a reduction of 2.98%, just under 3% in town operations that we have reduced thus far. The Board of Education operations budget, while the Board of Education budget did come in at an increase of 0.84, the town manager brought forward to us a budget that reflects a 0% increase. My understanding is that the Board of Education has heard what we have said to them. This council and the town manager have said over and over that we really need them to work on a 0% increase. They didn't bring that forward at the beginning of this process, but they are working on that now. And I'm hopeful that tomorrow evening, they will be looking to reduce their budget to this amount. And hopefully they will choose to do that before we have the job of making that reduction at our meeting, which is on April 20th when we set that mill rate. If you look down below, the overall total appropriations between the town and the board, and that includes the MDC, debt service, capital improvements, and employee leave and liability reserve fund, is an increase of 3.3%. Amount to be raised by current taxes is an increase of 4%. What we did was offset that with our, as I mentioned earlier, that general fund balance that we're applying the $2.5 million from that, as well as our net grand list. An adjusted collectible grand list, and that brings us to that new mill rate that is our tentative budget mill rate at 39.10, the second decrease since I've been mayor, and I can't tell you how pleased I am that that's where we're starting with this budget. We're already looking at a decrease, and I am so thrilled that the town manager has worked so hard to deliver this to us with his staff. So once again, our last slide of the evening, the summary of the changes. The total appropriations increase is $4,177,021 or 3.3%. Town operations decrease, reduction of personnel and consolidation of services is $1,142,947 or a reduction of 2.98%. I'm going to applaud our town staff because that's amazing. Our CIP increases, as I mentioned, this looks like a huge amount, but we're managing it. We're increasing our CIP by $5,648,384, or 177.3%. That is a whopping increase. But like I said, we have to address those needs. And if we're able to manage that based on what the town manager has delivered us, and we're able to do that with no mill rate increase, then that's a win for us as a town. Our Board of Education operations, as I mentioned, no change. Our state aid, no change from the current fiscal year. So no increase there, folks. We're doing this without an increase there. We are looking at an overall mill rate decrease in our tentative budget this evening at 0.18%. And as I mentioned, changes will happen. We will make adjustments to this budget as we see fit at the next two meetings. Well, actually three, technically, this evening, the 13th and the 20th. And then we will set that budget and mill rate on April 20th. I would encourage all members of the public, as you watch this, if you see it on replay, or if you hear from your friends about the budget, if you have any concerns or areas that you want us to look at, please feel free to reach out to any of us. If you go to the Newington, Town of Newington website, we are all listed on there, are the best ways to contact us, email and phone numbers. So please feel free to reach out to each and every one of us with your concerns over the budget, because we'd like to have all the information from our residents that we can before we make our final decisions on April 20th. And that concludes my presentation for this evening. So as I mentioned, we have our special meeting scheduled for this evening at 7 p.m. We will reconvene, that's just about a half an hour away. So James, are we using the same link for the meeting later on?
We are still in the same link, correct?
Okay. So my suggestion for the counselors would be to take a break, get a bite to eat, relax. We've got 33 minutes till we tune back in for the special meeting of the town council at 7 p.m. We now are moving on to public participation before we go ahead and adjourn. Is that what you were just saying, John?
Yeah, I figured I'd throw it out there.
Thanks. So I'm just going to move my screen over to see public participation. I do see one member of the public with their hand up, and it says S. Maz. I'm thinking that's Ms. Mazzacoli. If you could say your name and address for the record, please.
Susan Mazzacoli, 149 Harris Drive, Newington, Connecticut.
Welcome.
Thank you. Nice presentation. Just want to say that my concern is economic development. I've been seeing more chatter online about that in Newington. I'm very pleased with the fact that there's across from Stu Leonard's, I guess we're getting a new clothing store, which I'm interested in maybe someday going inside and buying something. On the other hand, I would really love to see if we could focus, and I know we don't have a part-time economic developer person anymore. I don't know what the title was, but I would love to see best market. I know you're probably getting taxes from them because the owners still own the property, but I think it would be so much better for their citizens to have, you know, either a small supermarket there or something else that, you know, maybe a general type of store, so that, you know, we would have more activity in our downtown. I can't think that adding a business there and making it, you know, just instead of just a dead building, you know, bringing some life back to it would be a benefit to all our restaurants in our town. So that's what I'm hoping that you could focus on after you're all done with this budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mazzacoli. All right, I'm looking to see if there are any other members of the public with their hands up. And I do not see anyone else with their hand up at this point. Okay. I believe we are all set with public participation. So James, I believe we are now looking for, we're looking for a motion to adjourn. Oh no, we don't need a motion. It's a public hearing, correct? So we are going to stand adjourned at 6:30, and I will see you all back in this Zoom link, everyone, at 7 p.m. to start our special meeting. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks a lot. on mute.
So how do I get in?
You're in.
7 p.m., Mayor.
Thank you, James. All right, I'm just looking in our screen. It's 7 p.m. just to make sure that everybody's with us. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
We're missing Counselor Camillo.
Okay. Would one of my folks text Counselor Camillo to make sure he's thinking about logging on? Thank you.
I'll take care of it.
Yeah, I just thought it was weird that he wasn't on the screen still. All right, it is 7 p.m., so we will go ahead and call the meeting to order. Welcome, everyone, to the Newington Town Council regular meeting. I believe it's a special meeting. Is that correct, James?
It is a special meeting. I missed
All right,
that
just
one.
making sure. I've been saying it all night. Wanted to make sure I wasn't wrong. All right, so this evening we have a special meeting, Tuesday, April 6, 2021. We are calling the meeting to order at 7:01. If you would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, if you are able. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Susan, would you please do the roll call for us?
Yes, Counselor Anist,
Yes.
Counselor Braverman,
Here.
Counselor Budraco,
Here.
Counselor Camillo, Counselor Donahue,
Here.
Counselor Mankey, Counselor Minor,
Here.
Counselor Nagel,
Here.
Mayor Del Buono.
Here. All right, we have 8 present, 1 absent. All right, the next item on our agenda this evening is public participation. Any member of the public may participate in the meeting by using the raise hand function if you would like to participate through the app. If you are calling in, you can use *9 to raise your hand and we will go ahead and recognize you. I'm just going to switch over to that window. And I do not see any members of the public raising their hand right now. So we will continue on with our agenda. Remarks by counselors on public participation. So there was none. We will move on. Consideration of old business. We have fiscal year 2021, 2022 proposed budget adjustments. So if you would refer to your packet, you will see that this was discussed at our last meeting. Is there a resolution in the packet, James? Because I don't see it in front of me.
No, these are your budget amendments at this point. We have a new item coming up in a moment.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is not the transfers. I was reading it wrong. I apologize.
That's
All
okay.
right, folks. So
At
this
this
is
point,
for,
you have no adjustments.
thank you, Counselor Menke.
Yeah,
Counselor Anist?
We have no adjustments this evening either.
Okay, and as I mentioned earlier in the public hearing, it is customary that we can make adjustments this evening, but oftentimes we like to hear if there is any public input after the public hearing before we do go ahead and make those adjustments. So for the public's knowledge, we will be looking to make adjustments to the budget at our next meeting on April 13th. And there will be an additional opportunity if necessary on April 20th prior to setting the mill rate, adopting the budget and setting the mill rate on the 20th. So we do have 2 more opportunities to do those adjustments. All right. So with no adjustments on the table, we will move on to the next item, which is under new business, fiscal year 2020-2021 transfer requests. We have in our packet a memo from our Director of Finance, Janet Murphy, explaining that she did request earlier some transfers mainly due to COVID reimbursements and leaving positions vacant and using bond premium. So due to the large surplus, she's looking to fund some projects and equipment in the current year to reduce the fiscal impact in the 2021-2022 fiscal year. You have before you a list of those recommended transfers. Ms. Murphy, did you want to jump in?
Sure. Just to point out which ones you are seeing probably in the current year budget. The first transfer I'm looking for is for the new fire truck. I know we talked about it last year. We're talking about it again this year. We have in next year's budget the other half of this fire truck, and that's the lease. So with this transfer, we'll be able to start right away on July 1st to get it ordered and start work on it, while I work on getting the financing for the second half of it through a leasing agreement. So this transfer you see there is just for the chassis. It's not for the rest of the work, but it will take, this could take up a year for us to get the fire truck. So this will at least get us starting. The second transfer is for the body cameras for the police department. I know they had discussed it with you before. The police department didn't fill some positions. So they did have a surplus, along with the fact that part of the grant we were able to get went towards their salaries. So this year there was a surplus there. This 140,000 is 2/3 of the cost. 1/3 of it is going to be reimbursable. So it's actually 200,000 in total. This is just money that we need to put forward for them to start looking at getting this in place. The library carpets is the next one. This is actually in the 2021-22 proposed budget. I'm looking to move it into this year instead. Once again, the library did not fill positions. They have surplus at the end of the year. We were figuring this might be a good time to do it before they actually start to open. And it would give us a chance to reduce next year's budget even further. The next one is the 40,000 for the painting of the Firehouse 5. This was brought up last year. It's in the proposed 2021-22 budget. Once again, it's one of the smaller one-time projects I was looking to move into this year. And the last one is 40,000 for irrigation system that surrounds the town hall. We were hoping that when the town hall project was done, there would be some funds maybe available for this. There isn't going to be. So we were looking to move this money over to try and take care of that, keep the grass from turning brown. And that's the total transfers we're looking for.
Thank you. I'll open it up for council discussion or question. Deputy Mayor Bedrejko.
Yeah, Janet, I was just wondering if you could just explain to me regarding the body cameras for the police. So it's obviously, it's not like a one-time grant. Anytime we purchase a piece of equipment, as long as it's new, we'll get 30% of the cost back. So even if it takes a period of
Gail, I'm not sure how long legislation will leave this open for us, this grant. I mean, like 4 or 5 years ago, it used to be they pay for 75% of it. And then they went down to 50%, and now they're at 1/3. So I can't guarantee how long. Right now, what the chief is looking at is the 2 options of purchasing it or leasing it. If we lease it, it's a little cheaper. Right now, legislation is not looking to reimburse us if we lease, so we're trying to get that changed. But I don't know how long legislation is going to leave reimbursing us 1/3 of the cost. As I said, 5 years ago, it was 75%. And,
so then it's a good idea to probably get as much as we can when we know what the reimbursement is. Okay,
yes,
thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see, Councilor Donahue.
Yes, I just might be my own lack of knowledge. Where is Firehouse number 5?
Where is it located?
Yeah.
Oh, I could not tell you that one.
Maple Hill Avenue, John.
Yeah.
Was that the one next to Hill Pizza?
Correct, yes.
Oh, the cadet house. All right. Thank you.
That was a valid question, John. Don't worry. All right. Any other council comment or question?
I have a question.
Yes, go right ahead.
Janet, how much is the total transfers that you're looking to do from CIP?
What do you mean from CIP? Oh, you mean the total transfers to CIP?
Yeah.
For all this? I think if I total up, it's a little over $1 million.
Okay.
Quickly add it up.
All set, Councilor Ernest?
Yes, Ann, thank you.
Okay. Any other council comment or question? All right, I don't see any, so we'll be looking, Janet, for a motion on this at our next meeting, correct?
Yes, please.
Okay, great. We'll take action next time. We'll move that onto that agenda.
Mayor,
Thank you, Janet. Yes?
For the record, Counselor Camillo joined us at 7:09.
Okay, thank you very much. Welcome, Counselor Camillo. All right, the next item on our, believe it or not, that is it for agenda items in terms of action. So we'll move on to public participation. Any member of the public who is joining us may raise their hand in the Zoom app, in the participants window, or if you're calling into the meeting, you can raise your hand by doing *6 and we will know you would like to be recognized. I'll give it just a minute and see if anyone would like to participate. All right, I don't see any hands up, so we will move on to remarks by counselors. I don't see any hands up there either, so we will move on to adjournment. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Counselor Mankey, seconded by Counselor Anist. Probably our quickest meeting on record. So
No kidding.
but get ready for our next few. They may be a little bit longer. All right, folks. Motion to adjourn is on the table second, and we will do a roll call vote to adjourn, please.
Counselor Anist,
Yes.
Counselor Budraco,
Yes.
Counselor Braverman,
Yes.
Counselor Camillo,
Yes.
Counselor Donahue,
Yes.
Counselor Mankey,
Yes.
Counselor Minor,
Yes.
Counselor Nagel,
Yes.
Mayor Del Buono.
Yes.
9-0.
Thank you, Susan.
You're welcome.
All right, folks, we stand adjourned at 7:11. Look at that. And we will see you all again on the 13th. Thank you, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.
We're done.